Sonic Adventure DX. As far as I can remember, it was the first ever PC game I've ever installed and played, which obviously I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but I wonder if it still holds up. Like, I still fondly remember going into TK Maxx with my mum, and then near the tills, there's like a bunch of games that you can buy, or random crap there. I remember there being a lot of like, those like cheap Game Gear stuff, I remember. But basically there was Sonic Adventure DX there for the PC, and I pestered my mom into buying it for me. I was basically begging, like, I want the Sonic game, Mom. There's a new Sonic game I don't recognize. And then, obviously, she bought it for me. And that was great, because I went home, installed it on my PC, and since I could barely read, I don't know how I got that done. But then I remember fondly playing through it, well, especially, like, Sonic Story mostly, but that was when I was a hardcore Sonic fan, so I don't know if it holds up.
After the development of Sonic & Knuckles in 1994, Yuji Naka, the co-creator of Sonic, moved from Sega Technical Institute in America back to Sonic Team in Japan. The Sega Saturn released a month after Sonic & Knuckles, meaning it would have to compete with the soon-releasing PlayStation 1. They needed their killer app to stand up against such monumental competition, so the American development studio started working on Sonic X-Treme, which was meant to be the first ever 3D Sonic game, but development was a complete mess, and it was cancelled. During this time, Sonic Team was making original games such as Nights into Dreams for the Saturn. Naka still wanted to make a Sonic game with the team for the poorly selling system, but they found the Saturn to be too limiting, but they were informed quickly that there was a new console that would allow them to make the greatest Sonic game, the Dreamcast. Sonic Team reworked the Saturn prototype of Sonic Adventure into Sonic Jam, called Sonic World, and in 1997, redevelopment was spearheaded by Yuji Naka as the producer and the Nights into Dream designer Takashi Iizuka as the director. Ironically slow behind his competition, Sonic finally made the leap into the third dimension with a new design and a new game in 1999. It gained love by critics and was the Dreamcast bestseller, but as we all know, the Dreamcast failed. Sonic Adventure 1 was then ported to the GameCube in 2004 with a few changes, which is the version I'll be looking at today.
Sonic Adventure DX is infamous because to this day, people still can't agree on the game's quality. Some people treasure it and think it's one of the best Sonic games ever made, and then some people would rather see the game burn and think it's complete shit. But is Sonic Adventure a worthwhile game with a few flaws, or is it a terrible game with a few high points? My name's BlanK, and today we're looking at Sonic Adventure DX.
The game opens up with this absolutely amazing intro. It starts off so slow and then it builds up and then BAM! It's like Crush 4E's Open Your Heart is playing and there's tons of stuff going on. Oh my god, it's so good! The presentation of this intro is just so good, but the presentation in game pales in comparison to the intro. If I have to be critical, the game has aged poorly, and the cutscenes are laughably bad. Animations are repeated, faces never move naturally, and lots of awkward pauses and constant visual bugs turn cutscenes into complete jokes, but I still love it. It's extremely cheesy and dumb, making it really entertaining to watch for the unintended reasons. Though, the audio mixing is a problem I seriously cannot look past, since the music is just too loud at times, so I can't hear the characters spit out cheesy lines too well.
With all 7 emeralds in him, he'll be invincible! And work for me!
The game has 6 playable characters, all with their own stories and gameplay with varying degrees of quality and length. You unlock more characters as you play through Sonic's story, which is the only one that is playable from the start. Sonic's story is by far the longest. Levels revolve around getting to the end of the stage. His story starts with him jumping around the roofs of Station Square, which is the city that serves as the main setting of the game. The police have surrounded this weird liquid dude called Chaos, and are forced to retreat when they realize that their weapons are useless. Sonic decides to fight him. This means that the first playable part of the game is a boss battle. It's like basic game design to give the player a safe area to, practice the controls for a bit to allow them to understand how the character feels to control. And a boss fight forces the player to immediately act with the impending danger of Chaos Zero, but he's such an easy fight, so it's not that bad of a problem. By the way, if you're wondering what the number next to Chaos's name means, it indicates how many emeralds he has used to, become stronger. Sonic's story is about him chasing down Dr. Robotnik to stop him from getting all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds, as Robotnik plans to fully power up Chaos, the god of destruction, with the Chaos Emeralds so he can destroy Station Square and build Robotnik Land upon its ruins. Sonic's story generally follows this formula of him and Tails finding a Chaos Emerald, then immediately losing it to Eggman. If you're wondering why I just called him Eggman, this is the first Western game to call him that, since he was always known as that in Japan, but they used this game to introduce the name Eggman from an insult from Sonic.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. Silence. I am Dr. Robotnik, the greatest scientific genius in the world. Whatever you say, Eggman.
Sonic spits some of the stupidest insults in history, and honestly,
Big drip, knucklehead, bolt brain, big loser, chunk of cheesy hardware.
I love it. On to Sonic's gameplay. He's easily the most fun character with the most effort put into him. He has the longest stages and goes through areas other characters are simply just blocked into. He has very few areas he doesn't actually get to go into. All the stages feel built with Sonic in mind, and after that, how other characters fit into those stages. Sonic has most of his old moves and techniques from the classic games, but there's a few new techniques here as well. The spin dash is great for building speed, and you can cancel the resulting roll into another quick spin dash without losing any speed, unlike the older games where you had to stand still. So you can keep repeating this for instant and constant speed, and I love this change so much. It's so cool. You can just cancel spin dashes, and you can keep things moving with quick thinking and mastery of the controls, which opens up new opportunities for skips and speedrunning. The homing attack, what was once a temporary power-up in Sonic 3D Blast, now returns as a permanent ability and a new addition to Sonic's moveset for future games. This amazing move makes taking down enemies a complete breeze. You jump in midair near an enemy and then BAM! You move on. This helps keep things fast-paced, but rolling into them works just as fine if you want to keep your speed. And sometimes it's used in levels to get to the next part if it has a group of flying enemies where you can chain together homing attacks. The new Lightspeed Dash upgrade allows you to travel super quickly through a trail of rings, but ironically, it's slow to charge up. Around 5 seconds without the optional and easy to get Crystal Ring upgrade that halves the charge time, but the problem still stands that the potential for more interesting level design that could allow you to travel far whilst keeping your momentum is ruined by the charge time, which forces you to stop. It's really obvious when a level forces you to use the dash, and there's no moments where it could be optimal to use it in a unique way, unlike the spin dash. The last upgrade for Sonic is called Ancient Light, which suffers from the same issues as the Lightspeed Dash, as it gives you access to the Lightspeed Dash attack, which is activated the same way as the dash but has to be activated near enemies. While pretty fun to use in one moment in the final stage, the tracking on the attack is too loose, and sometimes you will orbit around a flying enemy, leaving you defenseless until you touch the ground, which in certain levels could cost you a life. The only good use for this move is against Chaos 6, who you fight near the end of his story, where you can deal a massive amount of damage to end the fight quickly. Many of Sonic's levels have absolutely stellar set pieces, such as Ice Cap, which starts off as a slow level since you have to climb ice spikes, and it's just boring really. Though if you know what you're doing, you can basically skip all of it. But this slow pace is probably intentional because it builds up to this crazy snowboarding section with this absolute banger playing in the background. Got crazy tricks, you got massive jumps, got a sense of speed. It just gives it an amazing energy that feels amazing to play. Or, right, Sonic's best stage, SPEEPSHighway. It's so cool. You've got amazing design, banger music, so good, up, down, all around. And then you go to this part, and then you go to the glass, and it cracks, and you fall through it, and you're running down a skyscraper, and you're like, why am I running down a skyscraper? But then you have to keep going and going and going. And then there's helicopters, you gotta jump over the barriers and stuff, and then you gotta click item boxes, and so you see the glass, you're like, oh no, I'm gonna hit the glass in a minute. Bang, 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 and then you're going through the glass, and you're like, what is going on? You're dodging everything, and then you're going down and down, and then you hit the ground. And then you just continue on with a level like that, and it's it's so fun to play. Some of Sonic's levels are just amazing. I'm out of breath. While they're all pretty interesting, and some of them are, well, from my reaction, pretty great, Sky Chase is by far my least favorite part of Sonic's story. It's basically this turret section level. You can't control the plane's speed, it's on rails, and it's just a complete waiting game until the ride decides it's over. And the worst part is you do this twice in Sonic's story. And I guess it's fine because you can just leave the plane in the top right corner of the screen and then go make yourself a hot cup of tea.
Okay, So, you put it in the top right corner, okay? And then you go run to your kitchen, get a kettle. This one. Time to finish the speed run. Then I have to, and it's still going. It's still going. Well, there's my speed run. 3 minutes 15 seconds to do Sky Chase T percentage. Please beat my skull. Fuck.
All levels have multiple paths and many shortcuts, so you can complete levels far faster, which is great for doing the trial versions of the level for extra emblems, the big but optional collectible of the game. Emblems are gained after doing basically anything from completing a level, just finding them in the hub world, or replaying a level with extra objectives. These can be accessed from the trial menu, and each character has their own 3 objectives in every stage to gain an extra emblem. For example, to get every emblem in Sonic's levels, you have to play it normally, then beat the level with 50 rings, and then beat the level within a set time. This adds extra replay value to the entire game, and your reward for collecting some of them is some Game Gear games. I mean, I don't care, but alright. I found that I only really did the trial levels for the gameplay and not at all for the rewards. If you collect every single emblem though, you do get a Metal Sonic skin that you can use in Sonic's trial levels, which is really cool, but I didn't bother doing this since some of the emblems are a pain in the dick to get. The emblems I'm referring to are the Chow Races emblems. In most moments in the story, you can go into a Chow garden to raise and take care of these adorable little things. You have to keep them happy, and the animals you collect during gameplay can be given to Chow to boost their stats and change their appearance a bit. You can also buy food and eggs to get more Chows in the black market with their rings that you collect. The stats are important for Chow races, as obviously a higher level Chow will win more races. This is rather time consuming since there's a lot of waiting, but it's a fun and completely optional diversion from the main game. Mission mode is a strange diversion added in the DX port, where after you complete a character's story, you can go back into their hub world to do a variety of missions. While they do add extra replay value, I found most of the tasks to be really mundane and boring, so I didn't bother doing them. Between levels, you get put into a hub world. This hub world does help make everything feel a bit more connected and makes the world feel bigger. You control the exact same as you do in the hub world as you do in the levels, so it is fun to move around the place. If you ever get lost, you can just speak to the glowing ball, and that's always in the same position, to get told where to go next, which helps keep things moving. The hub world is completely inoffensive. I wouldn't mind if it was there, I wouldn't mind if it wasn't. This applies to all characters, but generally the camera in Sonic Adventure is complete shit in particular sections. It's extremely volatile due to it getting stuck randomly, flying all over the place, and sometimes you have to wrangle with the controls just so you're able to see what you want. In this clip, I'm trying my absolute best to look to the side so I can make a precise jump, but it straight up won't let me. It keeps trying to move it to the center. Oh, and yeah, the game's a buggy mess too. Sonic Adventure's level design generally allows you to skip parts of the level by using the level's geometry and combining a spin dash and a jump as Sonic, or flying as Tails to skip entire sections. While many skips are not intentional since the camera starts to freak out whenever you attempt anything wacky, I do love how all the levels allow this type of experimentation, as it does make replaying all of Sonic's levels and, well, even Tails' levels enjoyable, and it makes getting the best time a fun time. While I do really enjoy how Tails plays, I also think that his flying and the boost rings basically makes the entire story really fun but too easy. The unbelievably slow AI and the completely overpowered flying allows you to basically do no platforming as you completely blitz through everything, and you don't need to bother with any obstacles because, well, you can just fly around them. This isn't a bad thing though, as it keeps Tails' story fast and fun, even if you're going through the same stages as you went through in Sonic's story. All the characters have access to a limited number of the 11 stages in the game. While you'll enter the same stage multiple times with different characters, it'll usually be in a set section of the stage, or the stage order could be completely different to keep things fresh. Tails' first level is only the last section of Windy Valley, which is Sonic's second level who has access to all 3 sections. Tails can get the optional Jet Boots upgrade before he even enters Windy Valley, which just makes you fly faster, which is a nice boost, but there's not much else I can really say about it other than that, really. You can also get the Rhythm Badge with Tails, which allows him to do this Beyblade move, which is extremely useful, as it gives him another attacking option since until that point, his other attacking options were the pathetic Tail Swipe, rolling into things, or just bopping things on the head, which does work, but more options is good. Tails does have access to one unique substage though, Sand Hill, which is more ice cap but with sand. I love the ice cap snowboarding, and I love the sandboarding. It makes absolutely no sense why it's hidden in a cave in the middle of the jungle, where you flush away the sand for some reason, but, I mean, I'm not complaining, it's a cool stage. The problem with Tails' story is that it's closely linked to Sonic's, which means that you'll have to repeat a few things from Sonic's story. You get to skip straight to the snowboarding section in Ice Cap, which is great, but you'll have to do Sky Chase twice, again, which isn't great. That's 4 Sky Chases too many, but Tails' story does have a unique and rather heartwarming character arc where he learns to be independent, take down Chaos 4 like Sonic, and manages to, defeat Eggman to save Station Square, when Eggman attempts to send a missile to Station Square while they're both in it. What? Okay. He then celebrates by doing this stupid-ass victory dance. I don't get it, but I love it. It's great. I'm annoyed that Tails' cutscenes are like 80% the exact same as Sonic's, as they spend a majority of the game with each other, though they are slightly changed so Tails gets to be the one that fights the bosses, so you do get to do more stuff, but this conflicts with Sonic's story. Story conflicts are present in parts of the story. The Knuckles fight after Ice Cap is the biggest example of this confusing issue. In Sonic's story, you fight Knuckles, you crash into him, and then you drop the 2 emeralds that you have on you at this point in the story. In Tails' story, you fight Knuckles, crash into him, and drop the 2 emeralds that they had at this point in the story, which, if Sonic's and Tails' stories both happened at the same time, that can't have happened. But I don't mind this inconsistency, because it does mean that Tails gets to fight Knuckles, and that's a hilarious fight. The problem comes in with Knuckles' story. He fights Sonic and drops the emeralds like usual, but this time Sonic says a line instead of grunting. And, Eggman's lines are completely different as well. Which is just, why would you do that? It's like, this non-linear story is meant to be tied together by the cutscenes to create, one proper connected narrative that makes sense. Well, obviously this doesn't affect my understanding of the entire plot, because Sonic's story is obviously the foundation for the rest of the character's story, hence why Knuckles fights Sonic instead of Tails. This does make me question why the localization team did this, as, fun fact, the dialogue is consistent in the Japanese version. If you're wondering where that classic "oh no" sound effect comes from, it comes from this fight specifically, though the voice line sounds so strange because it was actually in a different cutscene in the E3 demo, when Knuckles had a slightly different voice.
That was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Oh no, it's starting to happen.
Whilst we're on the topic of Knuckles' story, he's the protector of the Master Emerald, an object so powerful that he's been isolated on a floating island without being told why, and has to make sure that nobody is able to shatter the emerald, and is then immediately shattered by Eggman. This causes the floating island he's on to crash back down to the surface, and causes Chaos, who has been sealed inside of the emerald, to escape. This takes place before all the stories in the game, as this is meant to be the start of the present-day plot. Knuckles has to find all the pieces to restore the Master Emerald back to normal, so the island can float in the skies again. Similar to Tails, he only has access to 5 stages. I quite like his gameplay, honestly. It's still fast-paced, but there's lots more platforming. His stages are all treasure hunts in a small, restricted chunk of a pre-existing level. You have to find 3 pieces of the Master Emerald to complete the stage, but with the help of the radar to find each of the pieces, it shouldn't be too difficult. And even if that isn't, enough information, you can get the help of the glowing tutorial ball, which will point you towards a piece. So you will never get frustrated or lost looking for a piece of the Master Emerald. Knuckles is able to glide and climb up walls, which really helps him to get anywhere and everywhere in a stage to find all the emeralds. The glide is also extremely fast, which makes it feel great to use. But you can also use a 1-2-3 punching combo to destroy grounded enemies, but it's so wonky and risky to do compared to just, rolling into them or gliding through them. Knuckles gets access to the Shovel Claw upgrade, which allows you to dig into specific dirt or stone, which is required to progress further in the story, and can be used to find emerald pieces if they're underground, though this upgrade is so underused, with 0 use outside of its single purpose, that it feels almost pointless. And then there's the optional fighting gloves, which look fucking stupid, which allows you to use the maximum heat Knuckles attack. Despite how cool it sounds, it's literally the Lightspeed dash attack, but for Knuckles. It even does massive damage to Chaos 6, and like with Sonic, it takes too long to charge up to be useful outside of that fight. It kinda just exists. Knuckles' gameplay in general is far more unique compared to Sonic and Tails, with less emphasis on speeding your way to the end, and more on exploration with a bit of problem solving. It still manages to keep what makes Sonic games so enjoyable, whilst making sure that it's still something new and interesting, even if they're stages you've been through multiple times by now. After the quick Chaos 6 fight, Knuckles restores the Master Emerald back to normal and the island rises up into the skies again. As he guards the Emerald, he starts to think about how he'll be on the floating island forever, and understands that while he doesn't know or understand the story behind the Master Emerald, he believes things are better that way, and he's finally at peace again. Whilst Knuckles has been playable before in the main series games, Sonic Adventure is the playable debut of Amy Rose. First introduced in Sonic CD as just a side character, she returns in this game with a new design and a big boppin' hammer. As she sees the egg carrier flying by, an escaping bird crashes into her and a green robot with these weird grabby hands tries to recapture the tiny winged dude since it secretly has a Chaos Emerald on it. Amy hides away and promises to protect the both of them from harm. She does get captured later and is taken onto the flying egg carrier, but once she escapes with the help of the other characters, her goal is to reunite the blue bird with its family. Amy's story is extremely short as she only has access to 3 stages, but oh, I'm glad. Her gameplay revolves around being chased by a green robot named Zero, and the goal is to escape on the balloon located at the end of the level. Amy's gameplay is far more slow, and far greater emphasis is put into pure platforming. This would be fine if she wasn't such a slow character, which makes her feel out of place in a game where 4 out of 6 characters are able to go at least somewhat fast. Her short and sweet but rather pointless story gives me the impression that she was rushed into the game, or wasn't planned to be playable from the start. Since Amy can't roll or jump directly into enemies, you have to rely on her Pico Pico hammer to get the job done. A surprisingly versatile tool as it can be used to bop enemies at proper timing on the ground or in the air. We can also use it at max speed to do a powerful high jump, which would be an excellent mobility move. However, getting to max speed is the problem. Amy has the acceleration of a fucking rock. This wouldn't be too bad if staying at high speeds wasn't so finicky, since even slight turns will slow her down by a large enough amount to turn her useful high jump into a normal hammer swing that will cancel all of your momentum. This can create frustrating situations since they're both mapped to the B and X buttons. The B button, or as the game calls it, the action button, is context sensitive. This means that depending on what you're doing or where you are, it can do many different things, from picking up, throwing, spin dashing, punching, smacking, and even talking, all mapped to the B button. Generally this isn't an issue, but what if you want to spin dash near an NPC, or, in Amy's case, quickly pick up an object while you're being chased by Zero? This can make the difference for her since she has 3 actions that have different purposes. Running too fast? High jump. Not in the exact position near the object? Hammer swing. Want to pick up the object? Hammer swing. Want to high jump? Hammer swing. Her grounded hammer swing is absolutely pathetic as well. Not only does it cancel all of your speed, it has absolutely terrible range and some ending lag. Her airborne swing is better in literally every way, since it doesn't cancel your speed, making it the safest option every time. Amy's upgrades are just like her gameplay, deeply flawed. The Warrior Feather is obtained by getting a decent score in this relatively fun whack-a-mole machine in the egg carrier, and it allows you to perform the spin hammer attack. Big problem. You have to stand still to activate it, and spinning too much will leave you dizzy, so it's completely useless. If it was more like Tails' rhythm badge, then there'll be some use to it, but as it stands, never used it. The long hammer is awarded to you once you go back to the egg carrier later on in the game and do the whack-a-mole game again. Like the creative name implies, it gives her attacks extra range, though I never got this upgrade as it's tucked away in an area you don't need to get back to until the final boss. Once you return to the egg carrier, Amy decides to reunite the bird's family, and Amy has had enough of Zero's shit, and decides to beat it up in the second most pathetic final boss in the entire game. You just jump over shockwaves for 40 seconds before the last hit. The birds live happily, and Amy decides that she's going to try her best and make Sonic respect her. Her story's alright. They never bother to explain why Zero is still chasing them after the Chaos Emerald was taken from the bird by Eggman. Wasn't the whole reason Amy was being chased was so the robot could get the emerald? I mean, Eggman already has it, so there's literally no reason for Zero to still be harassing Amy. While her story has 2 great moments, the rest of the story is uninteresting. You may be wondering how she managed to find the bird's family on the egg carrier, even though she was there before with everyone else. This is explained in Gamma's story. E102 Gamma is an entirely new character in the series. Second in Eggman's E-Series robots, he manages to surpass Eggman's expectations. He is told to check on the captured Amy to attempt to take the bird from her, but through a rather touching conversation where Amy realizes Gamma has no feelings programmed, he then realizes that he doesn't know why he's doing things for Eggman. After the bird stares at Gamma, he lets Amy go, which surprises her, and she calls him a friend. Aww. After Amy cuts off his fight with Sonic, she convinces him to leave Eggman. Gamma decides his mission is to save the other E-Series robots by blowing them up, to save the animal that is trapped inside every robot. Despite having 5 stages, Gamma's story feels short, but I had a lot of fun. All of his stages roll around getting to the end of the stage and fighting one of the E-Series robots as a boss fight. All the stages have a time limit where you have to lock into multiple enemies at once with your homing missiles to gain extra time. More enemies, more time. In the story mode, the time limit was never an issue due to them being a bit too generous with the amount of time they give you. The trial levels, though, make this far more exciting, as to get the final emblem, you'll need to complete the level with a certain amount of time left. This makes it far more engaging because while you want to blitz through the level to get it done in the fastest time possible, you'll also need to stop to lock onto multiple enemies for a massive time boost. Gamma gets access to the Jet Booster upgrade, which allows you to descend slowly in midair, which is required to complete the later levels. An overall great upgrade since it has many uses outside of its required purpose of being able to clear bigger gaps. It's generally really useful for platforming. The optional Laser Blaster upgrade gives the missiles a bit of splash damage since they now have small explosions when they impact something. While this sounds really useful on paper, I literally never noticed any times it was useful. Oh, and all the bosses, excluding the final one, can be defeated by literally standing still and pressing B. I mean, yeah, sure, okay, at least they don't waste your time. The final boss is a modified version of E101 Beta, which was the first boss of his story, and he returns after being upgraded by Eggman because he lost to Gamma. This fight is genuinely one of the best fights in the game. He has multiple different moves that you'll need to react quickly to, and the attacks get quicker and more powerful the further you get into the fight, until you deal the final blow to E101 Beta Mark II. With Beta destroyed and the bird trapped inside freed, Gamma's mission is finally complete. After seeing the bird, Gamma sees an image of the bird's family together. 2 of the birds are finally free, but the last one is still trapped. In one final act of kindness, he self-destructs. This frees the bird inside, which explains how they reunited so suddenly in Amy's story. While mostly irrelevant to the bigger plot involving Chaos, I enjoyed Gamma's story a lot since we get to see everything from his creation, to his betrayal, to finally his death. While, yeah, it isn't great writing, I still like his character and I found it charming that, at the end he finally develops emotions, which is made even better from Amy's interaction with Gamma, and that final image is just the cherry on top. While Gamma's story was loosely linked to the main plot, at least it was interesting enough to be worth the slight detour. If you're wondering what Gamma's story would be like if it wasn't interesting, you'd get Big the Cat. Voiced by John St. John, who also played Duke Nukem himself, Big's story starts out with his best friend Froggy eating a bit of chaos and running away. After glitching out and lifting some cars, he gets into Twinkle Park and has to fish Froggy out of the water. Big has access to 4 stages, which luckily makes his story rather short. Despite this, it feels really slow. Cast your line near fish, wait for a bite, and then carefully reel back the line with the A and B buttons to catch a fish. Yes, I said catch a fish. If the line breaks, you lose a life. You can also catch other random fish, but there's no reason to do so unless you're doing his trial levels where you have to catch a big fish before catching Froggy. This makes his story levels rather frustrating, as there'll be other random fish near Froggy that may bite when you don't want them to, which will make the level go on longer. If that isn't annoying enough, if you cast your line in the wrong position in Ice Cap, Froggy will get stuck and you'll have to try again. From the second I casted my line there, I was guaranteed to fail even if I did everything right. While it isn't difficult to catch Froggy since you can finish levels in seconds if you know what to do, Big's gameplay moves too far away from Sonic Adventure's main focus, platforming. While Ice Cap and Hot Shelter have some extremely basic platforming and exploration, since Big can only walk and jump, they're still boring as he has absolutely nothing interesting about his movement. Big's upgrades are about as exciting as his gameplay. Not at all. The life belt allows Big to swim, which does make things easier since all of his levels have a lot of water in it because, well, you need to fish. And it does allow you to fish whilst in the water, which does make catching Froggy a bit more convenient. He has 4 optional upgrades for his lure that all allow him to just catch bigger fish, and an upgrade for his fishing rod that allow you to cast your line further, which is made useless by the life belt. There is no moments in the game where this ability is ever useful. I didn't even notice the lure upgrade's effect either. Strangely enough, he does actually have a boss fight against Chaos 6 where he has to fish out Froggy. After this, Big steals Tails' plane and manages to fly it by sheer luck back to his home, where he lives peacefully with his froggy friend. The best part about this ending is how Tails forgot to put landing gear on that version of the plane, so Big somehow managed to get it into the air, and he had to crash into the jungle in order to land. It's so stupid. I love it. Big's story is only made unbearable by the fact that in order to unlock the Supersonic story, and by extension the real final boss, you'll need to trudge through his completely irrelevant story. If it was completely optional like the Chow Garden, then I wouldn't have a single problem with Big, as his gameplay feels like a padded minigame and nothing more. The character select model for Supersonic is a question mark, like, yeah, that's not mysterious, the name's right there. It starts with a shot of Tails' crashed plane with the last Chaos Emerald at the front. The floating island has crashed back down onto the surface. Meanwhile, Eggman finds Chaos still alive in the jungle. Knuckles, who is understandably confused about why the island has fallen again, despite the Master Emerald and 6 of the Chaos Emeralds still being there. He finds Eggman on the ground, who was betrayed by Chaos. It cuts to Sonic with his fingers through his face, relaxing. After Tails informs him about the island, they investigate. Knuckles tells him that Chaos is still alive and that he's stolen his Chaos Emeralds. Understanding the immediate danger, Sonic and Tails agree to stop Chaos again. Before he can do that, the glowing tutorial ball shows Sonic another flashback. This actually happens to every character in the story at least once. Yes, even Big and Gamma. To summarize, it's used to show the ancient Echidna tribe that wanted more power. The tribe wanted to use the emeralds to get more power, but Chaos used to protect the emeralds in the Chow. After the tribe attacked and tried to steal the power of the emeralds, Chaos used the emerald power to completely wipe them out. Tikal, an Echidna girl that tried to stop the tribe, managed to seal Chaos within the Master Emerald to prevent it from destroying the world. After this flashback, it's shown that time didn't freeze whilst he was in the past, so Sonic was just standing there completely zoned out, making Tails worried, and Knuckles has already left. Holy shit. They find the crashed Tornado 2 near Big's house, but Chaos yoinks it in the last second. With Chaos fully powered, he completely obliterates the busy Station Square by flooding it. By the way, this part where they show perfect Chaos used to scare the shit out of me when I was little. Tikal appears in person in front of Sonic, revealing that she was sealed inside the Master Emerald with Chaos. With the power the Chaos Emeralds absorbed, Tikal points out that he must be sealed again, but in a surprisingly good character moment, Sonic sympathizes with Chaos and points out how he would just be trapped inside the Emerald in constant anger and turmoil forever. All of the alive characters come together with the Emeralds. In the most cheesy scene ever, Sonic should be able to use the real power of the Emeralds. The people of Station Square are cheering him on, and this empowers the Emeralds with positive feelings, allowing Sonic to transform into his super form. This leads into one of the most cool final bosses in Sonic history. Super Sonic vs. Perfect Chaos. Open Your Heart starts playing. You get to fly over water through the flooded streets of Station Square with destroyed skyscrapers and roads everywhere. You build up speed off of the dash panel so you have enough speed to crash into Chaos and go up through his body to hit his head. All of this come together to create this blood-pumping situation that just gets you hyped. It's absolutely perfect. Well, until the second phase, where they stop playing Open Your Heart. Why? It's the perfect song! With Perfect Chaos defeated, Chaos goes back to being peaceful. Tikal and Chaos teleport away to live peacefully. Sonic then spots Eggman in the distance and chases after him, and the game just ends.
Sonic Adventure DX is a rather confusing game to give a proper conclusion to, because I only find a small portion of the game worth going back to, which is Sonic's gameplay. Like, Tails' gameplay's fine, it's simple but it's fun. Knuckles does have an engaging twist in his gameplay. Gamma is just dumb fun. But like, Amy's story I fucking hated it. And then Big story just shouldn't be a requirement to get to the last story. So that makes like 30% of the game worth playing, 40% and then the other 30% just no, don't play it. So yeah. So while I discovered that Sonic Adventure isn't a particularly good game, I still personally love the game. I think like the stupid campiness of the story and the voice acting, with a whoa and get a load of this, get a load, like it's just dumb. Like it It's fun, but if I have to, like, you know, give a critical view on it, it's not a particularly good game with a few baffling game design decisions. But does its sequel fix the problems I had with the first? Will it defy my expectations, or will it just stay as nostalgic memories and nothing more? Next time, we'll be looking at Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube. Whenever that video comes out, I have no idea.